It's the Anfield Wrap, brought to you by the numbers 5 and 15 and the letter W, and it's also in association with RedsBet. RedsBet are sponsoring the Anfield Wrap through the entirety of 2018. Half of your losses go to Liverpool-supported and related causes or initiatives throughout 2018. Do select which ones you'd want it to go to as and when it comes to the key moments of signing up to RedsBet. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. That's absolutely fine, and be gamble aware. Liverpool have gone. They've won 5 on the bounce. They went to Tottenham Hotspur at the weekend. They won by 2 goals to 1, and Gareth Roberts, it could have been 5.
Easily, yeah. I thought it was a great performance. I've seen a bit of cry arson about, sort of members of the front three not being quite honoured and all this kind of stuff, and yet, we tore them apart for me, and that this is one of our rivals, if you like, for a top 3, top 4 place. They aspire to be at the very top of the league, just like we do. They're building a new ground. They aspire to be a big club. And I know Wijnaldum said after the game that it isn't a statement as such, and that's fine. That's how he sees it, and that's how they're talking in the dressing room. But it is for me, because you think last season that we only get 1 point away from home against the big 6 clubs, if you like, and we've already topped that now by going there and winning. It is a statement, because I think up to now, everyone's been saying over and over again, there's more gears for Liverpool to go to. On the day when they click, they'll absolutely blow someone away, all this kind of stuff. This is another level now. And I was really pleased that Klopp just come out in front of it and went, that's the best we've played. Because, obviously people will try and say, there was the penalty situation and conceding late's not great and all this sort of stuff, and wastefulness in front of goal. Understandable points. But nevertheless, we've gone to Wembley and dominated against Spurs, created all the chances, created all the big chances, had more on target than them, and controlled the game. I mean, they had the ball for ages, but they didn't do anything with it. They were hoofing it. And when Spurs are resorting to hoofing it because they don't want to go through our midfield, then you're doing something right.
It's saying that when Wijnaldum says it doesn't want to be a statement win, it's just 3 points. I think that firstly says something about Liverpool's mindset. But the other way in which it looks like a statement result to me, Paul, is how far away Spurs look to us. That it's a double-edged sword. It's not just the idea of don't Liverpool look as though they've got a bit about them. There was, Spurs were 3 out of 3. They were 3 wins out of 3, and now they find themselves 3 wins out of 5, where Manchester City have got 13 points on the board, Chelsea have got 15 points on the board, Liverpool have got 15 points on the board. And they've also still got to come to Anfield, as basic as that might sound after 5 games to say that, but they've still got to come to Anfield and get something. And that, if they want to be around us, and that's not to write them off or anything like that, but there was a bit of, when the final whistle actually went, one of the things that went through my head was Spurs might not be our business now, and that's a mad place to be this early in this campaign.
Yes, Spurs not being our business might become true over the next few weeks. We'll have to see how sort of they bounce back. It's a statement performance from Liverpool, that really, because I was at Wembley last year for around 60 minutes before I couldn't see any more. It was quite incredible, actually, the sort of mindset shift that was quite apparent in the way the two teams had lined up. And I think Liverpool have played 33, 34 Premier League games since the last time they were at Wembley, and the difference is phenomenal. I think on paper, in your mind, you don't think that there's been that much change, but there's certainly a seismic mind shift in the fact that Tottenham really fancied having a go at Liverpool that day. Really, quite front foot. They played the fastest possible fullbacks they could play. They really wanted to have a go at Liverpool, and I thought they were slightly withdrawn. They didn't want to engage our midfield whatsoever. They didn't.
Hey, there's a lot of respect, isn't there?
A lot of respect, too much maybe, but I think they pay you too much because of how things have changed since the last time we were there. And we're now 6 points ahead of them after 5 games. I mean, if we could keep that record going for the rest of the season, I'd be thrilled, obviously. But the gap felt a bit of a gap, and that was what I'm taking away from it. Really, is that Liverpool have evolved. This is a side that have sold £145 million worth of midfielders since that game, but also added some really really good footballers, but mostly Virgil van Dijk, and the difference is phenomenal.
There was a seriousness of purpose about us, Josh, and that's what coming away from it, what I most enjoyed. That, with the exception of the silliness, if we want to refer to that, for 10 minutes in the final third, from about 75 to 85, there was a proper seriousness of purpose about Liverpool, that they knew that they were determined just to simply demonstrate that they were better than Tottenham on the day, and that was across all departments. Very little daft things happened. Very few bad decisions were made, as I say, in the first 2/3 of the pitch. Liverpool it was almost a steamroller of a performance.
Yeah, and it feels like this is the sort of the almost the new Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp. It felt like, particularly in his first sort of season and a half, Liverpool were this, and Dan Morgan's used the sort of best description of this. He's called Liverpool a high wire act, where it felt like you can either balance on the rope and it looks dead good, or you go flying off. And it doesn't feel so much like that anymore. It feels like a Liverpool side who exercise so much control. And it was strange watching the sort of first 10 minutes where Liverpool have all the chances going forward, because that felt like a throwback to the early Liverpool under Klopp, where they just go mad for the first 10 minutes, and we've not seen so much that. It feels like we usually grow into games now, but for basically the whole game, bar maybe the 10 minutes that you mentioned, you were just dominant.
That 10 minutes, Josh, just to come back to you on it, it's one of the things about that 10 was that you got the impression it was us making it clear that you're playing this game on our terms, but they'd almost already bought that. How long the grass was, for instance, to me was a thing. The pitch wasn't properly watered. The way they'd chosen to say, we're just going to bypass midfield, we're going to go front to back. All we did in those 10 minutes was we confirmed their worst fears, which is that we're better than them. So you've got to play this way. You've got to play like an upmarket Burnley. That's the only way you're going to get something out of it.
Yeah, it's strange that you mentioned those sort of other circumstances around it, because I hadn't considered it, and I actually thought their long ball was quite reactive, because in the first probably half an hour, you'd say, they just seemed to constantly keep losing the ball, and they kept trying to go backwards to their defenders, and then there was too much of a gap between the midfield and the defence, and one of our lads was occupying it. It felt like that sort of constantly happened over a half an hour spell, that every time we pressed them and every time that we sort of, even though they were on the front foot and they were having the passes, whenever they turned round, there was a Liverpool man there.
The game, as it develops, Paul, it becomes clear that they're concerned. We'll come on to talk about the goals, but one of the key things that happens after the first goal comes in is they've got to change their approach. They've got to start to play through midfield a little bit. And you were in the ground and I wasn't, and I spent a lot of the first half quite frustrated with our midfield from what I could see on television, in that I couldn't see them. They were just getting bypassed. They didn't feel like anyone was really in the game. And then as soon as Spurs tried to play through midfield, they just came off second best over and over and over again in every department, to especially Milner and Wijnaldum.
Yeah, I've seen a bit of that actually in sort of our post-match stuff, and I was quite surprised. And when I'd heard you say on the Pink and Ben Johnson in his match report, in his ratings, I should say, that you thought Milner and Wijnaldum struggled first half. At half time, they were all I spoke about, just how well they were doing. I thought they were really in control of the game, and I think that might be what leads Spurs to go as direct as they do, is the fact that anytime anything drops in that midfield, bang, Wijnaldum was there, but especially James Milner was there. I thought James Milner's my man of the match, quite simply. He was absolutely everywhere, and maybe just after a couple of minutes it dawned on them, we're not getting past them. The easiest way to get through this is to just go above them. And that was just so apparent.
But that didn't work either, though, did it?
That's the thing, because
Van Dijk and Gomez are just like happy
course.
days, and winning Everton. And I actually thought, I think you've put on the agenda later on a chat about Van Dijk, but just briefly on it. I actually didn't think it was his best day. You know what I mean? Like he puts a pass out of touch, he gives a dangerous free kick away at a stupid time, if you like, and stuff like that. But it's just his position. His positioning is just brilliant. It's like having Sammy back in that, and in the air, he's just always there. He's
but better on the ground as well. I've watched it back this morning, and just Gary Neville notes in his commentary that just a simple free kick and just the level of pass he's playing from side to side, just the fact he can him and Joe Gomez can just step out, comfortable in possession, and get Liverpool moving again is something that's quite new.
There's something about Van Dijk, Gareth, there's this thing, isn't it, that you've got, as a footy player, you've got your area. So there's your area that you're responsible for, and the thing about Van Dijk, because of the size of him, and because of the speed of him, is his area is absolutely enormous. That's the thing. The thing is that you can push right up the pitch, because if Kane tries to turn him round, I'd back Van Dijk to literally beat Kane in a race. Maybe not Moura, but Kane, just to beat him in a race. You saw Gomez beat Moura in a race later on, second half. But the pair of them, they're able to say, right, my square or my rectangle, it goes from all the way up there to all the way back there. You can't get it over my head because I'll win the header. You can't go around me because I'll do this. You can't. Liverpool were just happy to leave them 2-on-2 and just say that it's going to be all right.
Yeah, and the fullbacks are no slouches either. I think you see with Trent that he backs himself, because he'll push right up, because he knows if you try and turn him, he's got the recovery pace to get back as well. So that obviously helps as well. And I just think my sort of takeaway from it, apart from what I said at the start about it is a statement win, it is a big win and all the rest of it, is just that it just looks like, which is brilliant for us, it looks like it's an absolute nightmare to play Liverpool.
Yeah.
Like what do you do? How do you get past us now, and how do you plot a way through that? And Spurs are a good side. They're a side that we only got 1 point off last season, and it's the same group of players, and yet they ended up clueless there. I mean, I've seen I said before, I've seen some people sort of losing the shit a little bit about it, and maybe that's just, humans and that, but come on, you know what I mean? Like, apart from where he hits the post, there's nothing there, and yeah, okay, bit of a dodgy penalty shout thing at the end, but there was never a thing, there was never a time in the match where it really felt they've built a head of steam here, and at any minute now there's a goal coming. We were all right.
Josh, my fear throughout the whole match is best sort of articulated into the sentence of not scoring when on top. That's my biggest gripe. That's my biggest issue with Liverpool across the whole game, is not scoring when on top. And the way it actually transpired was, bar the 5 minutes of injury time, we were on top for 90 minutes. But all the way through I was thinking, well, they'll have a little spell, they'll have 10 minutes, and yeah, Gareth's right to point out, when Moura hits the post, he does really well against Gomez, because he's a good player, that's the thing. You're not going to have it all your own way against good players, but to have gone to their gaff and had it mostly all our own way against good players is just hugely impressive.
Yeah, and I think what you're sort of saying there about not scoring when being on top, I think that was reflected in the mood at Motel when Lamela does score, because it almost feels a bit like, oh fuck's sake, Liverpool, like we could have had this game killed by now. But I suppose that what's like almost the old Liverpool under Klopp have ingrained into our heads is that sometimes when we don't score and we're on top, it costs us late in games. But this Liverpool team don't look like a team who are gonna lose it late on in games. They look like a team who can really manage their way late on in games. So perhaps we need to have a bit more trust going forward when we don't score.
They do really well. There's the rasher chances, Paul, but they actually do really well for the 10 minutes after the rasher chances, and then it's only really that one corner and injury time where they get something. But even in that last 10, I was waiting for the Tottenham Hotspur kitchen sink, and it never comes. It never comes.
Yeah, I mean, I may be looking at the penalty a bit too much, and I think we do get away with it a little bit, and that concerns me slightly. But I think Gareth's right in saying, there's not a time really where we're under great pressure, apart from that very concentrated part of the game. I mean, I think it's not even from 90 minutes; it's from like 92 to 95. It's it wasn't easy to go through in the ground.
I've got one here for you, and I'll throw it in. There's a header from Kane on 85, which is a dead easy save for the keeper. It's just a looping header that he easily catches. That was their first attempt on target in the second half. Spurs, 85th minute. Yeah,
Liverpool seemed to get more of a stranglehold on the game second half, and I think naturally your nerves come into it a bit more. And I think once I'd watched it back again this morning, I thought, actually there was well more chances for Liverpool in this game than what you quite realise in the ground. Cause
there's loads of that. There's loads of watching it back and being able to keep once
the emotions gone, the results come in. I was sort of like, actually we were a bit. I knew we were good, and I knew that we were much the better side, but I didn't realise by quite the distance. And I was listening to Stuart Pearce talking about Liverpool and just going, the head and shoulders, they would walk the league if it wasn't for Manchester City. And he fancies us, but the point was, I wasn't quite as convinced that we were we dominated them as much as we did. And when Gareth says there that the first shot on target is at that point in the second half, that's surprising, but also,
by the same point we'd had. Just in the second half, we'd had 6 on target.
Exactly.
So, you know what I mean?
The wastefulness was a concern, and I don't know if with it being Harry Kane on the pitch or something, Mo Salah seemed hell bent to outperform him in that game. It was almost like a 6-pointer for him, and that needs to stop a little bit for me. There was times where a lot of the wrong pass was happening.
On that, what's dead interesting, you mentioned 6 attempts on target second half, Gareth. We have 10, and there's an excellent Andrew Beasley article in the Echo today. Andrew's column's very much worth reading in the Echo every Monday, but this one makes the point that there's not to get 10 shots on target in a game. It doesn't happen that often, and it's only the 4th time it's happened to Tottenham in 4 years, I think he says, and the first time at home that someone had 10 shots on target. But my point is, it should have been more. is that the actual issues at times wasn't just the idea that people were having a shot at the wrong time. It was the pass to lead to a shot was the wrong ball. That time and again, Liverpool, the error isn't just the last two bits of the play. It's actually the bit before that, where if you just make the right ball at the right time, someone does have another shot on target. That statistic gets even more out of hand. You might even score from it. You know, that's how dominant we were. You can pinpoint about 5 times watching the game back, where if you freeze frame it, you can probably say, if this happens, and this happens, we score.
Yeah, absolutely. There was so much of that, just making the wrong choice, or just holding the ball for a little bit too long, or just a little bit of indecision. I thought Mane a few times in particular is guilty of that. Even the one where he eventually gives it to Keita and Keita has the shot. You know, there's maybe an argument to say should have gone the other side to Mo. And there was a few of them, yeah. And I feel like Spurs have got away with one. They're lucky to get one. They're lucky to get 2-1. You know, said at the top it could have been 3, 4 or 5, and that wouldn't have flattered Liverpool whatsoever.
I think for me is though, and I mean, there's a lot being said about that, isn't there? That Liverpool should win 4-0. It's not like we don't do that against big sides either. You know, we've done it to City, we've done it to Roma, we've done it in the big game. So I think we can be calm walking away from this. That, you know, against Paris Saint-Germain in the week, it could be that again. We just need to. Since the start of the season, it's just going to take a little bit of sharpening the pencil a bit, and it will come back. But the thing for me is, we're still opening sides up. It doesn't look like we've gone blunt. It's just that we've been a bit wasteful. But that with a bit of confidence, will come.
I think our front three have been a bit strange this season, and I don't mean that to say that they've all necessarily played badly, but I do wonder whether sides are almost starting to take the hit on Liverpool's front three a bit, in terms of the sort of, it looks like sides are trying to stop Liverpool's front three really getting into the game and playing much, and I think they're willing to sometimes take the hit that one of them maybe breaks and one of them maybe has his chance, and it seems to be Firmino in the last couple of games who's popped up with that more often than not. But it feels like Salah in particular, teams are willing to say, look, you can leave one of the other two, but just stop him playing, stop this man playing, stop Sane playing, stop Mane playing, stop Salah playing, and it feels like they're willing to do that to almost maybe just limit the scoreline, and then maybe they think going later on into a game that they can open Liverpool up with that.
I was astonished about the fullback strategy from Tottenham. I couldn't believe it. There was not, like, I was looking at ours, and ours were quite respectful to Moura and Eriksen. I felt, you know, Eriksen's not a pace merchant, but Moura is. So Liverpool were picking the right time to go. Trent and Robertson overlapped when necessary, but not all the time, because you've got Milner and Keita moving either side. But Rose and Trippier were constantly going, and we were in. If Milner or Wijnaldum found a way of dispossessing Tottenham, we were in all the time, and it was quite, considering they were showing us so much respect, Tottenham, that bit was quite arrogant, I felt.
I think they were trying to copy Leicester. So if you think about Leicester really left the centre-halves open as well. But what they had was they had Mendy and Ndidi sitting really, really deep, and then so the full-backs would go, but they wouldn't go so far, and then they took in, and they just compressed us into that space. And I think they were trying to do that. But what was happening was those full-backs were going even further again. And I just think, I want to be careful not to slaughter the lad who's, you know, an international, but
Dyer.
I think he can be such a passenger in games. He offered them absolutely nothing. If I'm Dembele, I'm knocking on the manager's door saying I wanted to move because I found this league too. I'm saying I'm finding this league physically too hard, and I'm having to do his work. It's hard enough just for me here. I'm having to do his work. Interesting
to see Wanyama come on at the end. I think Wanyama now plays a bigger part, and I think Dyer really struggles. And you know, you've got a James Milner in the twilight of his career, someone who's retired from international football, saying it's not for him anymore, absolutely showing him up. He's everywhere, and Eric Dyer is such a passenger. We've got Jordan Henderson sat on the bench, you know, a lad he's vying for competition with. That's a real opportunity for him to go and make a statement in a football match, and he's just not at the same level as some of the other midfielders on that pitch,
including his own teammates. Is that one of the things? Is that including his own teammates,
one who's showing his hand, you know, and that's so important. I mean, Tottenham can't build a side in a two-man midfield round him. I mean, Harry Winks was such an interesting pick. I mean, he plays him last year, so there must be an attribute he likes against Liverpool for him to play him in both of them fixtures. And I know they're short, but I feel like they'd have been much better going 4-2-3-1, putting Eriksen in the middle, stop Eriksen having to make mad runs back, use him as a bit more of a luxury, maybe just risk some. But Dyer for me was a
someone needs to grab Winks, don't they, and have a word with him about goal line technology. Like,
yeah, it's on a watch, mate.
He's literally kicking off on the ref about the goal.
It's not over the line, that, mate. There's a chip in the ball.
No, yeah. It's sorted that, mate. That's not an argument anymore.
Yeah.
It's in.
You can't have that one. Yeah, you gotta. I was wondering if they were going to give a push or something. It was strange. The goal given twice, Gareth. It was like he's giving it. Has he not given it? He's given something else. No, he has given it. Get in. But on it, for years and for 3 or 4 years, I've gone to Liverpool matches and watched our goalkeepers get targeted. And
I love this,
we just went at him, didn't we? We just went at him.
It was like Bolton or something. It was like, how many times did you see Bolton do that to Liverpool where they targeted the keeper? They had like Kev Nolan standing on his feet and pushing him round, and us all getting a cob on watching it going, that shouldn't be allowed. and then there on Saturday, Virgil's doing it to their keeper, and you're like, yes, and like they'd worked on that. It was.
When Alden mentions it in his post match, he's talking to Redknapp and says they almost get it wrong. So one's meant to stay with the keeper and one's meant to drop back post. And he says him and Joe Gomez gives him a shout to do one thing, and he does the opposite, and that's how he ends up scoring. So it's quite interesting that Liverpool have gone get on form because. Yeah. I'm all for Liverpool doing the our-last tactics. I mean, Manchester United were never shy of doing this. They'll go into fixtures and go, oh, there's a weakness there. There's a clear weakness. Go for it. And I thought Tottenham thought the same about Alisson. There was a couple of interesting moments in the game where I think they've gone, just see what his mentality is like. Just fire a ball at him. You see Vertonghen try and lob him. See where his mindset's at, and I mean, I felt Alisson came out trumps. I thought he was really impressive.
I think this is where we're at with like the evolution of this Liverpool side. Is that for so long there was a conversation about Liverpool at set piece and how it seemed like we had no control over them, and now we're looking at it and you've got players coming out post match saying, well, we're meant to do this, and like we've actually got a strategy for all these things, and this comes back to even when you're talking about like us employing the throwing coach and things like all these little small margins that Liverpool now seem to be sort of smoothing over. This is what makes great sides, and this Liverpool side are really on the cusp of that.
I think what I'm impressed by with the manager, and I think sometimes we overlook him, is that you see Jose Mourinho and you sort of still know what to expect from Jose Mourinho. Jose Mourinho learns his coaching at a certain time, and it's almost like he stopped learning. There's nothing new coming in. Where Klopp's evolving his management. Klopp's a much better manager now than the day he arrives at Liverpool, and I think that's overlooked a little bit. The fact he's embracing new things, like the nutrition side was something that was being highlighted recently, and I know we've had a bit of stick over the throwing thing, but good, it's another angle for Liverpool to win football games, and if it's being a bit of an arse and not a football purist by standing on toes at corners, it got us an advantage. And these are all little wins we're having all over the pitch.
It shows sharp minds, I think, Gareth. That's what, again, one of that Spurs side is a big physical side who, tons of players in there who've got bits and pieces of pace, but you just got the impression Liverpool was sharper. Liverpool were mentally sharper. Physically sharper, yes, but also mentally sharper. And, as the game wore on, that sharpness just became more and more crystal clear to anyone watching it.
But also as well, the way they start, the way they start is full of confidence, and the ball's in the back of the net after 46 seconds. And then you don't get down at it from that. There's like 2 more chances within like 3 or 4 minutes. And it's to start that way at a big club, away at Wembley, all the pressure, 12:30 on the telly, all of those things. They're backing themselves massively. The confidence is there. They all know what they're doing. And then to start to bolt onto that little clever things, and bang into it, like free kick routines and corner routines and things like that. That feels to me that's because finally, after 3 years, Klopp's like, the group pretty much get it now. The core of the coaching is done. They get it, they know what they're doing. So now we can work on little details, little fine margins that gets us wins and goals here and there. And what a brilliant place to be, that.
I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it feels like Liverpool are actually treating from game one everything like a cup final. I heard you say on the Pink, Neil, about James Milner's attitude being like a February, March sort of fighting for everything in the FC. Like this means so much to us.
He had a lovely chat with Michael Oliver all afternoon, Milner. I was so pleased. He had a lovely chat with him.
But he did what he's meant to be doing. He's done a real good captain's job for Liverpool, but in the right way, and he's put in the captain's performance. But I think it was apparent with everyone, even the second goal celebration, it was like, that's big. And 5 games in, sometimes you go, it's early in the season, you can drop points. No, because Manchester City don't drop many points. Everyone needs to be reminded of the fact, what was it last season? They dropped 16 points.
14 points.
14 points. So if you drop 3, you've lost a huge percentage there of what you're allowed to lose compared to what they did last season. And Liverpool know it. It's been drilled into them. You do not drop anything stupidly.
It's the second goal, Josh. It showed the alternative path for the game, to be honest with you. The version of the game where Liverpool win 5-0, the version of the game where Liverpool dominate. For 30 seconds, basically, everyone does the right thing. And Liverpool are just absolutely exposed Spurs to the point that Vorm doesn't know where he is on the ground. You know, that's how bamboozled Tottenham have become by circumstances. Liverpool, everyone just does the right thing. The ball's in the back of the net. Roberto Firmino from 1 yard out.
Yeah, and it was Liverpool being reactive as well. It's interesting that you mentioned before about how much their fullbacks bombed on, because it all starts with Robertson and that out ball to Mane down the wing, and it feels like if fullback's going to push up against Liverpool and try and copy that Leicester style, then you want to see more of that. You want to see loads of that from Trent and Robertson playing that sort of curving ball in behind, because our strikers will get on it every time. So Mane gets onto it there, and then from then that's almost like food and drink for our forwards to be able to be running the wrong side of a defender, cutting in towards the centre halves. Like that is literally what these forwards are built for. And then, like you say, to be able to get the tap in, it's exactly what you want to see from Liverpool.
Yeah, and I mean them situations are quite interesting as well, actually, because I think what you put to remember when we're criticising Liverpool for getting into positions where they should score a bit more, is they are probably up against what has been known as the best centre-half partnership in the Premier League for the last couple of years. You know, there's a point where Mane gets, I think it's Alderweireld 1-on-1, and Alderweireld does a really good job on making Mane take that extra touch, so he just gets a bit of a scuff shot off. But Liverpool do find a way. It's past a very settled defence. I think if you can look back over Pochettino's reign, them 4 have probably played the most. You know, now Danny Rose is back in over Ben Davies. That's a very settled defence. I know Lloris isn't there, but for Liverpool to go and create that many chances against a defence that don't concede many chances is quite impressive.
I think their centre-halves play quite well.
Yeah, I think Vertonghen and Alderweireld, they're 2 centre-backs who will probably never want to be turned in a game. So it was interesting that was probably one of the first times, maybe there's a couple of other times where Liverpool had actually got in behind the full-backs and been able to sort of get in behind where their centre-back line was, because if you've got a Mane or Salah running in behind them, that's exactly where Vertonghen and Alderweireld don't want to be. They almost want to have that Van Dijk in front of him sort of control. They want to be able to say, I'll keep you there. And then, like you say, with the Mane chance with Alderweireld, that's exactly where he wants Mane. He wants to be able to go, well, I'm good enough for my position and to stop you getting a good shot. It's
exactly what Van Dijk does to Mbappe in the French, the France-Holland game. You know, just force him to go that extra touch wide where I haven't given the opportunity to pull the trigger properly. And they do a good game. They do a good job in the game. But I think there's 5 lads to the side and ahead of them that let them 2 down throughout the game constantly.
The composure was the thing you noticed with the second goal. Everyone's very, very composed on the Liverpool side, and maybe that's the last time that's the case when you get into the final third for the rest of the match. Gareth, with the possible exception of Sturridge when he comes on, they were just all very much new. This was the opportunity, this was the moment. I think Mane does absolutely brilliantly, and it's one of the things that does therefore make it surprising when it goes less well in the sort of the 20 minutes that follows, to be honest with you. Is, lads, this is the value of this. If you do everything right, you can kick it in the goal from a yard out.
Yeah, I mean, we talked before, haven't we, about some of the earlier games, about almost whether it felt there was almost like a deliberate plan to create better chances and to almost make sure, instead of having like pot shots on the edge of the box and things like that, and it felt like they went a little bit too much the other way against Spurs, in that, overthought it a little bit. I certainly think Mo was doing that. I think Mane was doing that as well. But on that goal, that just felt more instinctive. Lovely ball by Robertson. Mane, gets to the line, puts it across, and it's in the back of the net, as you say. And it felt like that was done on instinct, whereas some of the other one, there was so much, Spurs were giving us so much space at times, or we found so much space, that it was almost like the decision making. It was one of them things where you're running towards a goal, you've got loads of time to think about it, and then you'd end up making the wrong decision.
Well, that's the Mane Keita one. In the I think he does all right in the end, Mane, but you can see for ages he's like, I don't know what to do here. I'll just keep moving forward because they keep running backwards, and I've got 3 lads, and I don't think I'll want to pass to Firmino, but I might in a minute, and I'm sound with these 2 here. I'll just give it to him now.
It's a decent save, that, as well, to be fair. I mean, Keita, obviously easy to say you should keep it low or whatever, but it's a decent effort and it's a decent save. It's just with hindsight that you say maybe you can go the other side, or maybe Keita can square, or whatever. But I mean, overall, they should kill them off. One of the things I wanted to go back on, when we were saying about Liverpool being a bit cleverer now as well, is that I think that the high line that they're taking on like opposition free kicks is really interesting as well, because that's a dangerous thing to do, if you like, and it's not what like
we get it right again though. We get them
That's
offside again.
That's what I'm saying, and it's hard to do that. But it shows the confidence at the back to do it and keep doing it and keep catching sides offside. I mean, I don't know whether there's any stats kicking around about sort of number of times, you know, Liverpool are getting sides offside now compared to some time in the past, but it feels like they're nailing it. It feels like they're doing really well with that.
It's the evolution of our back line is really interesting. I mean, pre-game, I was looking at this and thinking, in the last fixture against Tottenham, which is 34 Premier League games ago, it's not that long. It's Mignolet in goal, it's Joe Gomez at right back, Lovren, Matip, Moreno, and then just there's no one playing in the same capacity there in this game. Obviously, Joe Gomez plays, but he's at centre half. It's completely different, and to look as well drilled when we're talking about Tottenham having so many games in the bank together as they do in that short amount of time is really quite impressive.
They've gone through a bit of a crucible though together. That was one of the other things that sort of occurred to me about this one is, Paul, Klopp can turn around and look at them and say, you got a result in the Stadio Olimpico, lads. You went to the Etihad, you got a result. That was one of the things that occurred to me during that second half, was that Liverpool have played and won in more big games than Tottenham across the last 12 months, and possibly even, and this is harsh on Tottenham because they've finished ahead of us as many times as they have, but even across the last 3 years, Liverpool are able to now can cite genuine examples, and you can even go, if you want to, for a couple of them all the way back to the Europa League run. They've played and won big matches, big games of football in a way in which I just don't think Tottenham have.
No, that's fair. That I suppose that is fair. I mean, the Tottenham finishing ahead of us thing frustrates us, but I think as a unit they've got things where they can use as points of references in the dressing room or even on the pitch, but like how we got out of X situation, when Manchester City really had us under the cosh after they scored that early goal at the Etihad in the Champions League quarters, I should say. We did this and that got us out of this, and it's good that they've got them experiences. I know Spurs last season they beat Real Madrid at home, and they've got little bits of that, but it's Liverpool having to be doing this when it really matters. And the relief that you see sort of from Van Dijk and stuff at the end when they're all embracing, it's like, we've done it again. That's another one of them things that we can achieve together. It's really good to see, but also that the goalkeeper could feel now like he's been here 12 months. I felt at the weekend. There doesn't feel like there's a getting to know you process where I think historically you go, I remember swapping from, I can't remember who it was, to Dudek, and he was left foot and they keep playing him on his right foot. There's none of that.
They were still more than happy to go back to him, weren't they, as well? Like, you might think possibly is there some kind of hangover from the Leicester situation. He wasn't bothered, the defenders weren't bothered, they were going back to him. They gave him a few under pressure as well, and he was fine with them.
There's the one he kicks out for a throw-in, wasn't there, which was sort
of a lesson learned straight away. Yeah. It was really impressive that.
But it shows you the level of where he is mentally. Like he's obviously, to my mind, what I'm seeing so far is that he's a mentally strong character, because you've seen other keepers all of a sudden collapse.
Yeah.
Off that situation, and to see him playing so confident. I just love, by the way, that he just takes everything in as well. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't seem to be too much into the idea of parrying things. He wants it in.
That free kick in the ground, I watched the back on telly because I was so impressed with the way he holds onto it. And on the telly, it doesn't really come across. There's some venom behind that strike. Like I was fully expecting him to drop it, and how he just holds onto it just shows that what happens at Leicester hasn't phased him.
There was another one as well where Kane was ready to pounce, and again he just took it into his body straight away and looks the business.
There is outstanding performers on the day, Josh. My first one's Firmino. I think it's his fifth start of the season, and there'd have been an argument after his first couple of games, maybe not even to give him a third start. He's struggled to get himself back going. Yet I thought he was marvellous. I thought it was for me, he was probably my man of the match. He was probably my pick of the bunch, because I think he set a tone. I think that it's more he sets, this is how Liverpool are going to attack, and he ensures Liverpool are not getting outnumbered anywhere on the pitch, with the fact that he works across that line and behind him over and over and over again.
Yeah, I remember me and you having a sort of a disagreement at Leicester about Firmino's performance there, because I actually thought on the day, not necessarily in an offensive capacity, but in a defensive capacity, he was sort of on another level to anyone else on the pitch for Liverpool, really, barring the midfielders at Leicester who were unreal. But it felt like he had that similar thing going against Tottenham in terms of whenever he dropped deep, he was so useful to Liverpool when they didn't have the ball. But then also when Liverpool were on the ball, he was everything that he wasn't at Leicester. He was getting his flicks off, his little passes were coming off here and there. And the best thing, I suppose, was his attacking positioning, and it's where you say that you want Liverpool to have as many of them 1 yard tap-ins as possible. Firmino will get so many of them over the course of the season if he manages to position himself the way he did in that game.
To me, Paul, he managed to give a bit of a consummate centre forward performance without going that close to his centre halves. It wasn't as though it wasn't a sort of I'm going to win the battle against X and Y. He just basically gave them constant questions to answer. Who's going to go with him? Who's going to come and find him? Who's going to come and be responsible for him this time? And neither of them wanted to, because of the space that was getting left out wide to them. They didn't want to be exposed on the other side, and he just exploited it over and over again.
Yeah, he's orchestrating our front three moves. He sort of embodies everything that front three are about. You know, he's captain of industry, but he's so intelligent, but he's got a bit of flair. You know, there's so much good about him. I mean, I'd hate to try and mark him, you know, because 1 minute he's right through the middle, next minute he's playing in the number 10 position as the other two join in, then he's on the left, then he's on the right. He must be an absolute nightmare for centre halves, but he's also really good. He's not just one of these forwards who's a bit of a nuisance because his movement's good. He's also a 20-goal-a-season striker. The injury he gets is absolutely gruesome, by the way. Them photos coming out after that, I didn't have a clue what had gone on with him. I'd seen him, he was holding his face, but I wasn't quite sure. So, that's absolutely
Paul,
great.
It's interesting you mention the centre halves marking in there, because I think what a lot of teams will try and do this season is similar to what Leicester will do. In terms of Leicester will try and keep a man almost around for the midfielders, so it's not the centre halves business. Whereas, like you mentioned, Tottenham's midfield before, they didn't have that at all. So it ended up being one of their centre halves who had to mark him, and that's where I think then he can be his strongest, is when he can keep away from the centre halves, but he gets his game going because there's no midfielder anywhere.
He just creates confusion. You know, who's got him, because the people are arriving left, right and centre from wide or going past Firmino. And Firmino sometimes will just stand. He'll just stand at the edge of the box. He's not going to go and get that goal he gets the other day, because this time Kite has gone ahead of him or Milner's gone ahead of him. It must be an absolute nightmare.
That was the one I noticed about, where, you know, the chance we mentioned earlier where it ends with Kite having the shot. It's Firmino deep who starts that move. And it's a great ball, by the way. It's a dead clever ball, but it's like, when he's in that position, Spurs must be looking at him going, he's meant to be up front, isn't he?
Yeah.
What's he doing there?
Yeah, but then they've got the two going round the side.
Exactly, and then Keita's intelligent enough to go, he's there so I can push on now.
Yeah, or Wijnaldum as well, yeah.
I wonder whether that's the way it'll go throughout the course of the season, though, whether Keita will be one of the sort of early runners, because Mane on the counter-attack's one of the really early runners, so I wonder whether Firmino now is going to be the almost late runner who maybe picks up scraps on the edge of the box once you've actually moved forward, but Keita will be the one who almost supersedes him every time.
I thought it was interesting to see that when they make the change for Firmino, that they put Keita through the middle, you know, because who's most likely to drop in and try and allow them two from the side to come in, but also who can play that sort of false nine role. I thought you couldn't have done it for a while, but just in the periods of the game where you're quite happy to sit it out a little bit, that was an interesting move. I want to keep Keita on the pitch because he's busy, because he can keep the ball, he can get us out of tight situations, but also you can enable the other two to come in a little bit and drag the centre halves back out with them.
And I wonder whether it's almost a precursor to them bringing Sturridge on as well, because I think if you see much of Sturridge playing with Mane and Salah this season, I think that's a similar thing to what he'll have to do, is what Klopp was expecting Keita to do. It'll be Mane and Salah broadly sort of running on, and Sturridge having to drop a bit deep and do a bit of that.
But Henderson was coming on for Keita until what happens with Firmino's eye, and so that move was happening, but as soon as someone who had them attributes needed to come out the game, it was like, no, it's not Keita this time. We're going to do something else, and it shows the manager's mentality a little bit.
Next one I want to talk about was Robertson. It was the sort of performance that would be quite easy to go unheralded, Gareth. But for me, I think he is certainly the pick of all four fullbacks who were on the pitch for either side throughout the course of the game. I think he's now so wonderfully pitched at 7 out of 10 that it's the only variance is whether or not he goes 8, 9, 10. And that, you know, he can just have 15 minutes where suddenly he's everywhere in the game, and then he can have 15 minutes where, because the play goes down the other side, he's nowhere, he's not really involved, and then he just comes back in, and there's an unbelievable level of reliability about him. The brain on him must be magnificent.
Yeah, I mean, it's a man comfortable in his skin now as first choice fullback for Liverpool, isn't it? And you know, that wasn't the case at first, obviously, and we all know that story and how we got into the side. And it does feel like I've done this to myself a few times, where you go and look how many games he's played for Liverpool, because it feels like he's been here forever. Yeah. And it's still only sort of 30 odd, or you know, it might be into 40 by now. I'm not sure, I haven't got it in front of me, but it's not. It's a lot less than you'd think. And it's like, you know, not long ago the lad's kicking around playing for Hull. Now he's like, you know, one of the best left backs in the league, captain in his country, and he just keeps getting better and better. And yet you're absolutely right, where, you know, when's the last time Robertson has a stinker? When's the last time he's roasted by someone? When's
his last bad 10?
Yeah.
When's the last 10 minutes where you thought, I'm concerned about Robertson here?
He's one of them players for Liverpool who you don't mind being really active. I think there's some players who maybe still, I think Trent, sometimes you don't want him to be too active in a game. You don't want too much of the play to go down his side, whereas Robertson, you take him being active in a game every single day of the week, whether that's on the ball or off the ball.
I don't think he's ever had a bad game for us. Like I'm racking my brain trying to think when he's not had a good game.
Go all the way back to the start maybe and say like Leicester.
Well,
yeah.
In that Leicester game, he's the busiest player on the pitch. Yeah. I think he may be a little bit wasteful in his crossing, but I'm not sure that he's ever had a truly bad game for Liverpool. And the comfortable in the skin thing is the interesting one, really, because I remember Stuart Downham coming to Liverpool, and you sort of had not similar expectation, but you had expectation, but he had this almost fear about playing for Liverpool. Well, Andy Robertson's the complete opposite, where he's just like, yeah, I'm completely at home here. It's that presence of mind is quite unique, actually. He's come into this Liverpool side from a Hull side relegated, and he's just flown since he got the opportunity.
You can see that you can see that he basically enjoys it all as well. And what I mean by that, like, you know, you've seen various bits of media and stuff that have come out where, like, it's clear, and stuff they've done on social media as well, where it's clear that Robertson and Milner are mates and they get on and they have a laugh. But then I think on the pitch as well, they help each other all the time. You can see them talking to each other. You can see them giving each other a little slap on the back and saying, well in, lad. And, you know, again, Milner's a great example for everyone there. You know, Milner's doing more than just what you're seeing on the pitch. I think he's great just to have around, have the experience, be a fella who can say, I've won this league and I know what it takes. And I think that's so vital. Like, I really liked sort of the messages that were coming out afterwards. So I watched all like the post-match interviews and all that kind of thing. And you had Milner basically fuming about the goal, fuming about conceding a goal and saying we've got to do better than that. But then also, you know, saying we were better today. The midfield wasn't that good against Leicester. It was better today. We were winning the ball higher up, and that's what we need to do. And it you know, he sounds like a manager talking. Do you know what I mean? He sounds like a fella who's having a deep think about every game. And then when it went to Klopp was asked about Wijnaldum and how well he'd played, and the fact that he's finally scored an away goal in the Premier League and all this sort of stuff. And he's like, you know, the interviewer said, but it's not just that. You know, his game in general all day, he was brilliant. And Klopp went, yeah, but the thing is, when you play that well, the next question is, can you keep doing it? Can you keep showing that consistency? And it's great that after a result in a performance like that the manager can sort of come out and throw down little challenges, knowing that you can get into Wijnaldum's head there, because he can still lose his place, because there's still people sitting there on the bench waiting for a chance. There's still, you know, you still got a Brazilian fella you played 40 million quid for, who's still not got a chance. And it's like, it's just this thing now. You just think with the competition for places now, I think Liverpool will maintain this standard. That
and for me, it's a lot, because there's no opportunity being created by poor performance. You know, if you're Jordan Henderson and Fabinho, you're going, you're not hoping for someone to have a bad game, but you're almost, there's games where someone's not quite at it and you go, well, am I going to look in for him next time? But the way they're performing at the moment, even if you look at Leicester, you go, the midfield three wasn't great, but maybe Henderson didn't shine as much as the other two, so it reverts back to what you've seen so far. And I'd be a little bit concerned that these two are going to get a stranglehold being on a balanced three, you know, the one that works for Liverpool. Because if you're Jordan Henderson, club captain on the pitch, you're going, well, they're not missing captain's attributes because James Milner's doing this. You're not missing this. Like Fabinho must be scratching his head going, I don't see where my opportunity comes. Firstly, because the club captain sat on the bench next to me. So if there's one coming in, it's probably going to be him. And then I've got to wait again. It's going to be tough.
It is going to be tough. I think it'll come though. I think it's going to be a long campaign, and nothing else you can see that he likes to pull them in and out. You mentioned both Milner and Wijnaldum, Robertson and Fabinho. They were my outstanding performers. Me, the ones of Van Dijk, Josh. I had Van Dijk. I'm pleased Gareth said before that he didn't think Van Dijk was unimpeachable or anything like that, because I'm intrigued by that. I agree with him, but I think one of the things is he's now at the sort of point where the football world is just basically going, you can't get near this fella. This is it. It's Vidic Ferdinand levels of this is how good he is. It's John Terry levels of this is how good he is. It's dominant centre half in the division territory now, of everyone just sort of going, this fella's unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned the sort of rectangle thing before, because it almost feels like there's no way you can really get at Van Dijk. I imagine opposition teams will look at him and go, like, how do you get past this fella? They'll pin everything on Gomez because there's maybe a weakness you could possibly highlight in Gomez in terms of the certain performance where you might be able to get the better of him if you're running at him in front of him. So I think of Lucas Moura in this game where he has a beating of Gomez at one point, albeit he has to come out of position to get to him. But with Van Dijk, I don't see how you do that, because like Paul said before, you got the Mbappe situation for France and Holland where he keeps in front of him and he's good position, and if you go over his head, he'll either clear it with his head or in behind. He's not going to get really beaten in a foot race by many people unless there's a sort of substantial amount of ground to cover. So I imagine for opposition teams, they're having to look at him and think, what do you do about this fella, just as much as they are about any of the front three.
It is a what you do about this fella thing, Paul, and I think it matters, this stuff, in terms of, again, it back to being half 12 on a Saturday. You know, football, we think that we've seen, you know, the good thing about the City behind the scenes thing is it does remind you that on a base level, it's 11 lads playing a game and 3 coaches, and the very nature of even at the very highest level, even the very best sides are at times looking at each other going, what do you do about him? What do you do about him? How do you deal with this? And they'll now be saying, you know, are we going to do something about Van Dijk? Or saying, let's just try to keep away from him. And I just think that, you know, football is built to some degree it's built on unbelievable achievement, it's built on brilliant concentration, it's built on physical attributes, but it's also ever so slightly built on bullshit. You know, it's built on this idea of he's unreal, so don't even bother. And that is now where Van Dijk got himself, I think, in such quick time. It's not 12 months he's been a Liverpool player, and he is in the category of he's unreal, don't even bother.
Yeah, I mean, I would hate to try and play against him when you feel like you can't beat him on the air, you can't beat him on the ground. Where is the weakness? And that's the thing for me. Where is the weakness? Because Man City get a bit of change out of him at the Etihad. You know, Sterling knocks him off the ball, they get him behind, and that, I think since then, you know, there's a little thing at Leicester where Joe Gomez saves him. I can't really remember what else.
Sane roasted them pre-season.
Well,
yeah, no, he did. I'm intrigued by that, because I'd play on him. I'm going to keep saying it, and I hope no one listens. I'd actually play on him. I'd actually make him dead busy for 15 minutes, because I think at the minute he actually doesn't. It's got to such an extent now that everyone just tries to keep the ball away from him. I think the idea of don't let him basically walk around the pitch like he owns it. Instead, make him do some defending for a bit. Yeah, I'd see if you can rattle him.
Don't let him be the cool guy he is.
Yeah.
And that's it, because people are starting to show him so much respect. In his own head, he's like, I'm sound here. And he had that little thing at Leicester where he wasn't sound for a minute, you know, so he's only one man as well. You can gang up on him a little bit. So, but the thing is that he's found a partner there in Joe Gomez that is allowing him. They've got similar attributes in a way. It doesn't feel like Ferdinand and Vidic. People were saying about, can Gomez be the guy who puts his body in the line? The thing that Virgil van Dijk's not famous for, you know. Can he do that? But it almost feels like he doesn't have to at the moment. And I know you touched on Joe Gomez there a second ago with that thing with Moura. I think if it's anyone but Lucas Moura, he actually tries to smash it out, because there's no recovery against Lucas Moura. He's so fast. And like, if Gomez doesn't go, I think he's all right. But the fact that he's had to go and then recover, he's given Lucas Moura the inch he just can't afford to give him.
I wonder whether that City at the Etihad thing is how you play Van Dijk. I wonder whether it's almost like there was a couple of other midfielders for City who cut the passing lane, and then Sterling was the one who chased him and sort of forced him out wide. And I wonder whether that's where you get him when you almost take away his ability to be composed, because like you say, there's probably not probably not enough of a challenge for Van Dijk in terms of he seems to, when he has the ball, just have the whole pitch to look at, and there's just usually players backing off, and then he's allowed to pick his pass, whereas City were probably the only ones who sort of like to force him maybe out wide or back towards his own goal. So I wonder whether that is for opposition teams, how you do it. But then are there teams who are good enough to execute that like City do? Are teams lower down the league going to be ambitious enough to go?
Are you going to want to spend your time midweek working on how we deal with their
Exactly.
centre-back? There's something to deal with their centre-back. Yeah, Gaffer, they've got 3 lads up front. They scored 100 goals last year. Can we have a look at that, please?
The thing for me with that one is like, but there's the best centre halves ever will always go to the Manchester City are probably the best side in Europe. So if that's the only side that you can really consider giving them a headache, then you're going to be fine against the majority. So if Leroy Sané is the lad who gives him a headache, then sound, because Fernando Torres was the guy that gave Nemanja Vidic a headache, and that was sound as well. You're allowed to have the one club or the one guy that's going to test you. You know, the fact is that he's not being tested by Tottenham. You know, it is something you can take away from it.
By Harry Kane.
By Harry Kane, a lad who's, he's 30 goals and I don't know how many. Honestly, I couldn't tell you one thing Harry Kane does from that in that game, and that is not the norm. Like, I know some people initially had doubts about Harry Kane and his ability to do it for a long time, but I've seen enough of Harry Kane now to say he's absolutely top drawer. And Virgil van Dijk doesn't really break a sweat with him.
On them, Gareth, I think, we've raved about us there enough. They look aside to me with loads of questions to answer out there. It seems like the manager's got too much work to do. Like, he's got to constantly solve stuff. And you said before, you get the impression our manager now is a bit like, everyone knows the jobs. You all know your jobs. Yeah, there'll be team meetings. Yeah, there'll be, this is how you deal with this threat. This is how you deal with this threat. But you literally know what it is to play for us and what we're going to try and do here in this game. You know it innately, to some degree. With them, you are looking at, it's another change of shape. He's gone from 4 at the back, 3 at the back, 4 at the back, 3 at the back. This is his 4. He's
Winks randomly coming in.
Exactly, dropping Winks in. Then he changes it at half time because they're 1-0 down, and he's got to. It's not a criticism. In fact, none of this is a criticism of him. But for the first time, I did begin to think, yeah, there's something not quite right here. And maybe, we turned it around after getting beat there last season and we went on a really good run and we've been in great shape. So there's no reason why they can't do the same. They're all good players. But I am looking at them going, they did look really vulnerable. And I think, it's partially because of us, but it was almost like the manager's just got to try to sort stuff out all the time. And as we've seen in the past, that can only take you so far.
Yeah, I mean, you wonder about some of the stuff we discussed before the game, really. I mean, it was interesting speaking to Paul Dehaney, and obviously he is a Spurs fan, and he was saying, we've got loads of 26 internationals or whatever, and this idea that, us not signing anyone in the summer was disastrous in some way. He wasn't really having it. But I still wonder about it, because I just think, like, new faces on the training ground just brings a level of freshness, a level of challenge as well, like, I might lose my place here type of thing. And to not do it, I don't know, I just think it sows some kind of seed for you.
The pressure that's been put on Wijnaldum. Like,
and then all of a sudden he goes up a level. Yeah.
Keita and Fabinho arriving, and then all of a sudden Wijnaldum's stepping up.
Milner as well.
Yeah, of course. Well,
Milner's good anyway, but I mean, I feel like he's gone, if my place is under threat, then, right, I'm doing this, boys. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's it. Competition removes inconsistency a little bit.
There's something else though there. The two that you just mentioned, neither of which went away for the World Cup, and that was because they just looked. I thought Van Dijk. I thought Vertonghen and Robertson. I thought Vertonghen played well, but even Vertonghen, Paul, and I've rated him for ages. I was watching him on the turn, and he just looked a tiny bit slower than he used to. This is a lad who used to be able to play left back.
They're both in the 30s though. Vertonghen and Alderweireld.
Yeah, that's the other thing as well. That this Tottenham side is now another year older, and for a few of them, like Dele Alli, that's a good thing. But there's a few others where that's not.
But we've said as well, haven't we? Sorry, mate. We've said as well, like, that one of the great things about Liverpool is not just like, they all know the system now, and they all know the manager, and they all know what's expected of them, but also that there isn't a problem. There isn't a player right now who's pushing for a move. There's the little niggling thing around Mane, like, you'd like him to sign this deal, but that aside, there's no problem child. There's no Sakho. There's no issues there. There's no player who's on the pitch at any point where you're like, what's he doing at Liverpool? Whereas at Tottenham, the issues are racking up for me. Like, it's still no ground, didn't buy no one in the summer, situation now around the goalkeeper and the drink driving,
fitness questions on about 7 of them.
Yeah.
Who started?
People starting to say, is Harry Kane goosed from the summer as well?
It's quite possibly all true.
Yeah.
The thing for me is obviously the two centre halves in the 30s. That suits some centre halves, but they're still, with every year that goes, they're decreasing slightly. Danny Rose has been out of favour. He's obviously done interviews the club didn't like. Trippier has had his first proper full season at Tottenham last season, then a World Cup, and then straight back in because he doesn't quite fancy Aurier by the looks of things.
Dembele has basically said, I'd rather not play Premier League footy anymore, lads, it's dead fast.
Well, he's done what Danny Agger did. You know, he's gone, my body can't handle this. But Agger got off, and Dembele's not been given the opportunity to because Tottenham tried to do, I think they tried to get the lad from Valencia in the summer, didn't they? That was at Inter. I can't remember his name.
Banega.
No.
Don't worry about it, let's just gloss over. I'm not good listening to me and you just say footballers' names to one another.
Yeah, Pablo Aimar or something like that. Yeah. No, there is, as Gareth says, there's problems racking up. They did look tired, Tottenham, and that's one thing where I think Liverpool, you know, we can say what we like Tottenham, the amount of their lads that started that game that were in the last week of the World Cup is quite impressive.
Paul, I remember us doing a gutter before the season started where we looked at all the sort of top six, our rivals for the top six in terms of the business they've done, and we were looking at Tottenham and thinking this could be a really make or break season for them. And it's interesting you mentioned before, Neil, about Pochettino having to solve too many problems, because I just wonder this season whether he's left himself too much to do when there's teams like Liverpool who are really sort of starting to establish a foothold, and there's teams like Chelsea and Arsenal who now have this new project which they're going to be dead excited about getting into. I wonder whether Tottenham have spent so many seasons just sort of slightly improving that now they've given themselves too much improving to do, and they've not actually given themselves the tools to do it. They're going into a season now and looking at it where they'd almost like to be the side who tick away quietly, but there's going to be a lot of questions asked about them.
Kondogbia.
It's Kondogbia, excellent. It's also, but it is, Gareth, it's a really bad weekend for Tottenham. You know, we beat them at their gaff. City win, Chelsea win, Man United win, Arsenal win. You know, it's now, I think everyone's now got 9 points, or in City's case 13, or us and Chelsea sitting on 15. So they're now having gone to Old Trafford and won, and that's the thing, they've gone to Old Trafford and won, and now they're sitting there going, yeah, they've almost not, they could do it, they don't feel the benefit, for want of a phrase.
No, and it's two defeats on the spin as well, isn't it? And when you saw the managers talking afterwards as well, I didn't think he was entirely convincing what he said. I mean, what he said was that, you know, if they'd managed to nick one at the end, if they'd got that penalty decision, then loads of people would have hailed Tottenham's character and said at least they stayed in it when it wasn't their best day, and that they'd been dominated and that kind of thing. And I just thought, I'm not sure about that as like a sort of takeaway message. It doesn't really sound that convincing. And yeah, I mean, great if they end up in crisis, because that's someone else that we don't need to worry about, basically. You know, more of that, please. I mean, you already sort of feel like you can begin to write Arsenal off again.
Even despite their win, you're not really taking them seriously.
No, not really, no. Just kind of think this new fella and his madness around goalkeepers and that kind of thing for a start rings some alarm bells. And then if Tottenham sort of sink into that as well, and you know that they've got this ground thing, I think hangs over here. I know the record at Wembley isn't that bad, but I just think it's weird, and I think it's going to continually be another thing where it'll keep getting pushed back. You know, the news stories will continue about how much it's costing them and all that sort of stuff. The fans, I think, might start to get a little bit on edge, and like they'll start to go, well, I mean, I'm certainly going looking at it from the outside going, well, hang on, she's spending a lot of money on this ground. You decided not to buy anyone in the summer.
It's very Arsenal. I mean? It's very Arsenal, and what Arsene Wenger had to put up with. My thing with Pochettino is, you know, since Kiev, he then commits to a new contract. Zidane just wins another European Cup. Zidane's going nowhere. He signs a new contract. Zidane goes. They don't sign a player, and then he kept saying, "I'm so happy. I'm so happy." And I don't know if you've ever seen. It's like that episode of Friends where Ross is going, "I'm fine. You know, I'm fine." Where I'm not quite convinced he is fine. I think he would have really quite liked that opportunity now. His stock was at the end of last season.
He knows the grass is greener elsewhere, doesn't he? It's the thing, especially if Spurs do become this problem team over the course of this season. He's going to know that, you know, Real Madrid, I don't know whether they're going to be in sort of good situation with their manager for however long. It probably depends on what Barcelona do this season, but he's going to be looking at that thinking they're always going to be sniffing around me. They're not going to go away, really.
Lopetegui's not the guy that I think Tottenham Hotspur wanted to be in the hot seat at Real Madrid, because despite the fact he was the Spain manager and despite the fact he's done a good job at Porto and stuff in the past, he's not the big name that's going to be there for the next 3 or 4 years. He's a short-term solution. And if things start going wrong at Tottenham, it'd be easy for Pochettino to just go.
And Tottenham could have almost done without the controversy around the way that he got appointed as Real Madrid manager, because it almost puts him on the back foot of Real Madrid straight away as well.
Because they're so pro-Spanish football.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to make it really difficult, for Pochettino to sort of look away from that.
The Reds have got to keep doing the Reds and move right the way forward. Hopefully keep coming up against and deepening clubs in crisis. It's been an absolute pleasure. A pleasure to watch Liverpool at the weekend as they decimated Tottenham Hotspur by 2-1. Normally doesn't happen that way, but that is the way it did indeed happen. Thank you very much indeed to Josh Sexton, to Gareth Roberts and to Paul Senior. Thank you very much indeed for RedsBet partnering with us in the whole of 2018. And thank you very much to you for listening. The Reds are on the march. Paris Saint-Germain next. Good Lord, what a time to be a Liverpool supporter.